I can't believe that men have been making fun of us for their coercion. Dead fish? Ah! Sometimes y'all, the comments that y'all leave, they blow me away because this one comment sent me into a spiral. I was looking it up, trying to figure it out. So let me show you what I found. Massive trigger warning, okay? So there's all these threads on multiple platforms of men being like, how do you tell your girlfriend she's like a dead fish in bed and she just lays there? And then, don't read this if you're too triggered. The comments of men saying literal things like, I mean, the best schmegs I ever had was with the dead fish type girls. I can't even deal with women who are aggressive in bed. They just turn me. I'm pretty happy doing it to a dead fish of a very hot girlfriend if she just lays there while letting me get everything I want. So I'm cool with that. There's also articles about starfish. I remember one of the first, I had made some guy friends when I first moved here to France. And they were talking about starfishing, and I was like, what's that? And they're like, and it's not. Some people think of it as someone who just lays there and does nothing. I'm all about that. If it means you are licking my, I'm just going to sit there and do nothing. And, let you do your thing before you have access to anything else because I sent her my O. And yeah, you got to work for it, man, or you're gone, right? I'm all about that. But men are not talking about that. When men say dead fish and starfish, what they mean is they're complaining that a girl is not enjoying it and she's just letting him do it, but she clearly doesn't want to be there. And then they blame us. Like this one dude's article or whatever you want to call it is so ridiculous. Why are starfish so hated? As you can imagine, starfishing is a bit like having schmegs with an automaton or a schmegs blow up doll. These are the men who are perfectly fine getting a girl drunk and graping her while she's unconscious because that's almost the same thing. The only difference is that she's awake. She's clearly not there. She's letting you do this to her. And men have been telling themselves that that's not grape, that that's consensual. She's not enjoying herself, doesn't want to be there. And you probably even intuitively know somehow that she's in a trauma response. Like you probably don't have enough emotional intelligence to put those words to that, but you can tell if she's frozen because that's where they got the word. Dead fishing came from what fish do when they feel like they are around a predator and they want to stay alive. They pretend to be dead. And then men took that term and were like, God, why is she such a dead fish? They have been graping us and making fun of us for graping us and blaming us for not enjoying that. Now, if you go back and watch this video before, you'll have the full context, especially before any of you are like, but I didn't know. Although I know you'd never say that because you're never going to admit that you ever did this. That's the problem. That's why we can't get out of this. But if you have had schmegs with a woman or anybody, it's not always a woman. It's not always a woman, but it's often a woman. And it's been normalized to be a woman because the things I mentioned in that last video, like growing up on this, where it's just normalized and almost like hilarious that the hot guy passes off his dead fish, or rather passed out, unconscious, a girlfriend off to the nerd so he can get him some little favor for you, buddy. Like, I know why y'all bought into this lie. I know why I am just recently in the last few years awakening to just how few of my schmegual encounters before, I got into my late 30s were actually consensual. How often men could care less if I wanted to be there, if I was having fun, or if I was even alive. I remember the first time when I was teaching English in Chile and I was couch surfing when I first got there. My couch surfing host, I was talking about what dating culture is like back in the US. And I was like, yeah, it's kind of messed up. I mean, I grew up in a culture where men are purposely trying to get you drunk so that you will pass out and they can sleep with you. And he was like, I'm not saying this doesn't happen in Chile, but it was the first time he genuinely did not understand what I'm talking about. He was like, how is that? How does a man enjoy that? That's like having schmegs with someone dead. They're asleep. They're dead. How is that even? And I was like, oh my God, why do they enjoy that? Like, it was so normalized for me. I didn't even question it. Like, I intuitively knew this is messed up, which is why I tapped out and didn't date any of these forkers for most of my 20s and 30s. I was literally celibate for 12 of my adult years, not consecutively, but every time I try to go out there and get some brown chicken, brown cow, these men traumatize me because I could tell they either just were completely indifferent to me and my humanity and my or they straight up hated me, like hated me. And then I worked with guys in the film industry who were talking about women that they were having schmegs with and would joke about how they wish they had a bag over her head. It would have been better that way. I have worked with men in the outdoor industry, in the film industry, in comedy. I know how they talk. I've been hearing their jokes. I grew up as a Gen Xer watching things like 16 Candles and Revenge of the Nerds and Porky's with literal peepers. Schmegsville violation on the cover of the film. And yet it probably wasn't even until this year that I was willing to admit to myself that is grape. Tricking women is grape. Lying, using intimidation and fear and power, all of that is grape. And like one of my mutuals I'm going to tag did an amazing video, Hope Peddler, about how much this is normalized, that being a player, there are books written about it. That is like worshipped. Tricking women into schmegs. So you're basically stealing their body from them. And that's a flex. And dead fish, women dead fishing is a criticism. We are not going to get anywhere until men can face their shame and look at the worst parts of themselves and their history, the trauma they have caused. I don't even know how many women. That's for you to figure out. Don't contact those women, but you need to sit with that. You need to go to a therapist and talk about that. And you also probably need to go to a therapist and talk about your trauma, because I guarantee you have some. You cannot grow up as a man in this violent culture, conditioned under toxic masculinity to be dead inside and full of no feelings other than rage because you don't even know how to feel anything because you're not allowed to, and then be scared of men and take it out on us. That has got a little T trauma at the very least, but y'all don't want to deal with it. You go to the gym, you just hang out with other men so you can talk crap about women. You can drink beer. You can go do your hobbies together. You can keep doing your escapism, because that, I swear to God, is the root of most men's problem. Escapism. You don't want to look at yourselves. You'll literally do anything but look at yourself. And this is why y'all have been doing this. Maybe not all of you, but if you didn't, I promise you most of your friends did. Now, I'm specifically speaking to the US because that's the culture I grew up in, and I'm sure it applies to plenty other places. But before you come in my comments, I'm mostly talking about the US because it is honestly the most violent place I have ever lived in my entire life, or even visited. And I've been to like dozens and dozens of countries and lived in 5. But when the first thing I got here in France, they're like, yeah, women who starfish. Y'all are doing it too. I'm not friends with those guys anymore, by the way. Unbelievable. I'm so mad that I never put this together. I can't believe I never connected these dots, because looking at this is scary as hell, whether you're on the receiving or the giving side of this. But if we will not look at our past, if we will not understand our history, and this applies to like white supremacy and all this other stuff too, right? Which I talked about in the last video. We will not look at our past, face our shame, and face the truth, we will not move forward. The resistance to the truth will make us more and more violent and sicker, and will never break these cycles of violence. Oh my God. Am I the only one who never connected these dots? My God.